Maybe I'll just open up with a short statement as we go into our Council of Federation meeting and ultimately some First Ministers meetings this week. As we know, there's been some additional announcements by the U.S. administration on increasing tariffs for multiple reasons. And I would just say that anytime there is an increase in the tariffs going either way, whether the United States of America is putting tariffs on Canadian goods flowing south or vice versa, where there's tariffs on American goods flowing north, it's important for us to identify that our economies are very, very integrated. They're integrated for a reason. It's the most efficient way for us to have a competitive North American economy. And when those tariffs are applied, it increases the cost for families and to do business on both sides of that border for American families as well as for Canadian families, and ultimately weakens our North American industry, of which we need to be working together to strengthen that North American industry, strengthen our food and energy and manufacturing security, and ultimately strengthening our ability to remain sovereign as nations and sovereign as a North American continent. So these tariffs do nothing for making for a more competitive North American economy, and it speaks to the importance of us as subnational governments to support our federal government in being very ambitious at the negotiating table and reviewing the CUSMA deal that we have, the CUSMA deal that I would say North Americans and Canadians value and would like to see renewed sooner rather than later to provide that certainty in our respective economies. We'll be doing what we can as a subnational government to support our federal government at that negotiating table. And in particular, I think the next 30 days, my ask would be from the province of Saskatchewan is for Ambassador Wiseman, Janet Charest, Dominic LeBlanc to take direction from the Prime Minister to be very ambitious in those negotiations, to meet virtually each and every day to find a resolution to the current tariffs that we have and to find some certainty in how we can move forward in building that strong North American economy, that competitive North American economy, so that we can turn our minds to other things. Ensuring, and most paramount, I think, is to ensure the sovereignty of our respective nations and collectively the sovereignty of our continent.
Will you advise the other premiers to remove their kind of ban on American alcohol?
Yeah, well, that would be an issue that would be raised by the Americans at the negotiating table. Myself and other provincial premiers are not at that negotiating table. The federal government is. And so that ask would, if it is an issue with for the American side of these negotiations at the negotiating table, and it appears it is, that would be an ask for the federal government to make of those provinces. Not for a subnational government to ask their respective counterparts to do so. So I won't say I don't expect that ask to come. I think it's already been made in some cases. So that'll be a decision each province will have to make, but that ask should come from the federal government. They're at the negotiating table. They'll know the sensitivities that may present in those negotiations, and they'll also know that what counteraction would happen should that occur by the American administration. And I don't know the answer to that yet. We may later today.
Premier, does that comment you just made mean that the federal government has asked some premiers to remove their booze bans? Is that your understanding?
I expect that ask to be coming.
Do you think it has already been made, though? The way you phrase that?
Hasn't been made of Saskatchewan because we're in a different situation, obviously.
Premier Doug Ford has said that it's time for Canada to make a deal with the U.S. He said we need to provide some certainty to provinces. Do you feel that way, that it's long past due to do a deal?
Well, it is, but you need two people, or in this case three, as a trilateral deal to sign that deal. So I think it most certainly is time for us to intensify our negotiations, be very ambitious to camp out those three individuals that I had mentioned, Janet Charest, Ambassador Wiseman, and Dominic LeBlanc, to essentially camp out in Washington, D.C. and meet at every opportunity that we can. And I would say it's not just Canadians that need a reviewed and renewed CUSMA agreement, the country of Mexico and Mexicans as well. But most importantly, I think Americans. Americans represent 26% of global GDP. They're a significant part of the GDP on Earth, and they're very closely geographically aligned with us. I would say they have been our largest trading partner for the entirety of our time. I would say they will continue to be into the future. The trade relationship that Canada has with the United States of America is a significant and our most important trade relationship. It's much larger than any current or previous or coming administration, and it's much larger than any president or prime minister. And we need to keep our eye on that as Canadians. But it is time for us to come to an agreement in this review of our trilateral trade agreement. And I think the path forward over the next number of weeks is to engage and engage ambitiously. I anticipate there will be numerous meetings, if not today, over the next couple of days, not only amongst premiers, as we're at the Council of Federation, but also with the Prime Minister, possibly even Dominic LeBlanc, who's our representative. Likely.
Yeah. The economic impact for Saskatchewan and the specific things on the list, because not all of them are things we export in volume. Have you gone down the list and looked for things that will actually hit your jurisdiction? Do you have like a dollar figure, an estimate from your officials as to what this hit means for your province?
So tariffs and the discussion around tariffs, whether it be with the U.S., China, India, and many other countries, is not new to our province. We are very much an exporting province. We export to over 160 countries around the world. And we have navigated and negotiated to some degree alongside our federal government tariff challenges in multiple countries, and in this case, repeatedly with the U.S. This is a 9th or 10th round of tariffs that we have faced through either a social media post or an initiative by the president in the U.S. in the last 18 months. And I think that's important for us to realize is that this is a pattern that repeatedly occurs from the American administration today. Each and every time that happens, they are very vague in what that announcement is, and every province, I think, and in fairness, the federal government takes some time to go through and see what the actual impact is, which industries are impacted by those tariffs as well. As we know, some of the larger impacts, and our largest export to the United States out of Saskatchewan is oil. Agri-food products are a big export. We have, obviously, uranium is a significant export, powering about 1 in 17 homes in the United States of America. Those, it appears, won't be impacted by these tariffs. That's not to say that we don't have impact by previous tariffs in our province. We had a forestry mill that just closed this past week. That's one of 16 mills across Canada that have closed in recent time, in the last year or so. That's a substantial impact to the forestry industry in our province. We're trying to dissect whether there's going to be additional tariffs on some of our OSB, some of our pulp, that is exported to the U.S. as we speak. So we're working through some of those details like we have on 8 or 9 or 10 other occasions when there's an announcement from the United States of America. We also have a manufacturing sector, whether it be ag manufacturing, mining manufacturing, that is impacted by some of the current 232 and some of the countervail tariffs, some of the retaliatory tariffs that we have in place as well. As I said earlier, our economies are very much integrated. They're integrated for a reason. We see steel that's going back and forth over the border multiple times. The auto sector, I think, is another example of that. Going back and forth, but those products are going back and forth over the border multiple times before they become a finished product. And that's why tariffs in either direction actually are quite harmful to the broader goal that we have, which is to ensure that we have a competitive North American economy.
You don't know yet the impact of the latest ones?
We're just working through that. It appears to be, some impact in Saskatchewan, but it doesn't appear to impact those natural resources and our agri-food products, which are the largest exports that we have to the U.S. for this current conversation. We have other impacts from previous tariffs that are in place that are impacting the forestry industry, our manufacturing industry. Some of those are larger in other parts of Canada. We understand that. And I think that really speaks to the importance of us as subnational governments having a discussion. How do we support the federal government in ensuring and answering questions and getting to a renewed, reviewed CUSMA negotiation? That's what's best for everyone, not only in Canada, but in the United States of America and Mexico as well. Well, I think that's a question for the federal government. They're at the negotiating table. What we found in Saskatchewan was there wasn't going to be an advantage in putting that particular ban on place in our province. That's why we don't have one today.
But to what extent will you be advocating for coordinated provincial commission, considering you really see that as
Sorry, you have to speak up.
To what extent will you be advocating for a coordinated provincial position, considering you reinstated access to American alcohol, but now will be weathering additional tariffs as a result of decisions made elsewhere?
Well, I think those are decisions that each individual province can make. You know, in that case, we made a different decision than virtually every other province, save for Alberta. We talked a little bit about you know what the impacts of this most recent announcement is, as we still try to actually look at what the impact is to our province. I think other provinces will see a larger impact from yesterday's announcement. At the end of the day, whether it's this round of tariffs or the fentanyl tariffs or the Liberation Day tariffs, which didn't have quite a significant impact on Canada, or whether it be, you know, we see Section 232, we've seen, like I say, multiple rounds of tariffs. It takes some time to determine what impacts those are, where those impacts are greater or less in Canada, and how we're going to approach it. And so I think that's where the subnational governments have a role. One is to build those relationships, and Saskatchewan has very much done that, not just in the United States of America, but we saw it in China, we saw it in India, as well as many other countries around the world. And then two is to have the conversations with other provinces, but more importantly with our federal government on what is our approach going to be and how are we going to get to what the ultimate goal is here. The ultimate goal isn't to counter tariff and further weaken the North American economy. The ultimate goal is to get to a renewed agreement. A trade agreement that is going to build and ensure that our North American economy is more competitive moving forward than maybe it is today with the uncertainty that we're facing. David?
But Premier, what confidence do you have that there is a path to a renewed agreement with the Americans short of just full-blown capitulation? Because if you look at what Jameson Greer said in Aspen last week, he said the concessions Canada has given don't get you anything. You know, digital services tax, Netflix tax, they forced a reopening and a change of the Gordie Howe Bridge. And they've essentially adopted the position that if you do something we don't like and then undo it, you're back to even. You don't get any credit for it. So short of capitulation, because these latest tariffs are retaliation on retaliation, right? They're not even tariffing the things we tariffed because they're already tariffed. So how do you see a path forward here with a partner like the United States that acts as if the international order doesn't exist and agreements that are signed in good faith don't hold up?
It's a challenging time, and I would say that I would go back to, there's going to be many words, and I've said this many times, there's going to be much rhetoric that comes out of not only the White House, but various members of the administration there as well. And you'll see some rhetoric coming from Canada in this negotiation as well. We need to set that aside, and we need to stay focused on what the ultimate goal is here. The goal isn't to win some sort of a war on social media or a war of words on social media, or even to one-up when it comes to whatever the policy or the rhetoric of the day is. The goal here is actually for us to have that renewed, reviewed CUSMA agreement moving forward. That is a goal for Canadians, and I would say that largely when you set the administration aside, that is a goal for Americans as well. These tariffs are doing nothing for the affordability for the common American family across that nation. And they're doing nothing for the cost of doing business for all sizes of business, medium, small businesses in the United States of America. And we see that in our nation as well, most certainly. So the goal is to have a reviewed and renewed CUSMA arrangement. And so we need to set aside some of what's on social media. We need to set aside as, I think, subnational and ultimately as national negotiators that are at the table and negotiate a reviewed deal. The path forward and the conclusion of all of this isn't going to happen on social media. And it isn't, in fairness, going to happen in the public sphere. It's going to happen at the negotiating table. And that's why my advice to the federal government, and I'll be bringing that to all the tables that I have the opportunity to be a part of over the next few days, is for Ambassador Wiseman, Janice Charest. We have a good negotiating team there led by Dominic LeBlanc, is to engage ambitiously and vigorously with this U.S. administration, because at the end of the day, they need a renewed agreement as well. And we need to realize that. They need a renewed agreement as well. And in fact, as we look into the future, they need to do more trade. They need to bring in more products, both ways in fairness, from Canada into the U.S. When we talk about energy security in the U.S. and in Canada, it is going to mean that we're going to be producing more energy products across this nation, providing them to our allies in the U.S. and other allies around the world. We need to increase the level of oil production we have. We need to make it available, yes, on the West Coast to nations around the world, but we also are going to have to produce more oil to make it available to American families and an American industry as well. We're doing that in the nuclear industry. We see 2 uranium mines in Saskatchewan that have full provincial and national approvals. One more has all the provincial approvals, and I suspect in the not too distant future we'll have all of the national approvals. To put that in perspective, we have 2 operating uranium mines in the province now, and we're about to bring 3 more on. That's the level of ambition that Canada has right now in providing energy security to our allies, and I would say that regardless of who's in the White House today, the trade relationship that we have with the United States of America is much larger than one gentleman.
The White House believes that, you know, Carney is drawing out negotiations because it's politically advantageous for him this side of the border. Do you think that the federal government is drawing out negotiations because it's politically advantageous, or what is your understanding of why we haven't gotten this bill yet?
Yeah, I can't comment on whether they're drawing out negotiations. I think they're negotiating at every opportunity that they have. I would like us to be a lead in at least being ambitious in those negotiations and trying to be and making every attempt to be at that table each and every day moving forward. We have, even with this latest round, which I would say is the 9th or 10th round of tariffs that we have that are having impacts not only on Canadian business and families, but American business and families as well. We have 30 days until they come into effect. We've seen the president walk back some of his previous tariffs as well in that time period. This is a prime time for Canada to be very ambitious in getting to that negotiating table and advancing the review of this trade deal, which I don't think any Canadian or American can argue is the most important trade deal that each of us have.
So you don't want to fight, elbows down.
I want a trade agreement with the United States of America. They're our largest trading partner, have been for all of our life, yours and I's, and likely will be into the future. At the end of the day, why would you want to fight with your largest trading partner, regardless of what they're saying? We need this trade agreement.
Thank you. Sorry.
We got to go. Thanks, everybody.
Well, look, welcome to Prince Edward Island, everyone. I'm really proud to welcome premiers from our provinces and territories here to Charlottetown for the annual Council of the Federation Summer Meeting. It's and also for our National Indigenous Organization meetings, which will take place later here this morning. And look, Prince Edward Island, there's no place like Prince Edward Island, especially at this time of year. It's peak PEI, and we've got important meetings here, obviously, but we're also hoping to show you a bit of the best of Prince Edward Island. Really hope everyone enjoys their time here. Yeah, with that, take some questions.
Premier, it's my understanding there's been another First Ministers meeting added to the agenda today, that you're going to have a virtual meeting with the Prime Minister at 3:30 Atlantic, 2:30 Eastern. Beyond an update on the tariffs, what are you expecting for that meeting, and what has this latest announcement from Donald Trump done to your plans for the next couple of days?
Well, I wouldn't expect anything beyond an update on these latest developments on the tariffs announced yesterday by Donald Trump. We've got a very busy schedule over the next 48 hours, 72 hours, and this is going to make it a little busier. So we're rearranging some things today. But last night I spoke with Minister LeBlanc. I also spoke with Chief Trade Negotiator Janice Charette last night, just to get myself up to speed as best I could. It's still early days, so we're still trying to figure out exactly what this means. I know that they're doing some analysis on the impact. I've seen you all talking about that on the news this morning. I don't have much to add than what you've all discovered this morning by speaking with premiers, trade representatives, experts. We're all trying to figure this out.
Did the Minister or Ms. Charette give you any indication as to why they think these tariffs are coming now? Did they give you any insight into why they think the timing of this is happening right after the World Cup ends and at this point on the calendar?
I wouldn't read anything into the timing myself. Initially, I thought it might be time to coincide with these meetings, but I would suggest that it's probably coincidental. I think that the awareness of what's happening here in Canada and certainly here in Prince Edward Island these next few days is not always their focus. I think that This is, obviously, there's been a bit of a lull since the U.S. decided not to renew CUSMA a few weeks ago, and here we are, we're on to the next moves. But look, it does present us an opportunity over the next 30 days. I think Premier Moe just referred to this, to take a look at everything that's on the table, not just what they've presented as part of this tariff package, to move forward and some sort of agreement that benefits both Americans and Canadians.
Will PEI put American foods back on the shelf?
Yet to be seen. We're going to have conversations about that. These are the conversations we can have over the next 30 days. That's an irritant for the United States, but there's certainly many irritants for Canadians in terms of that relationship. So let's, you know, the way it was put to me by Minister LeBlanc last night, these 30 days are a chance to hammer out a deal. We could get past some of the sticking points that have been holding us back for the past 12 months or more if things play out well, and we all want this to be to the mutual benefit of both Canadians and Americans.
Has the federal government asked you to put alcohol back on the shelves, US alcohol back on the shelves?
No, they have not. That's not a conversation I've had with our federal government. There was, I think I received a letter at one point questioning what it would take, what this province would want in return for putting U.S. alcohol back on the shelves here in Prince Edward Island. Obviously, we're a drop in the bucket in the grand scheme of things. We're not going to solve problems for American alcohol producers by putting alcohol back on the shelf here in Prince Edward Island alone. But it's a conversation we have to have as premiers, and how it fits into this 30-day discussion about hammering out a deal over these irritants.
What were you,
Most of us hadn't heard about it until we arrived there and started receiving notifications on our phones. There was a bit of discussion, nothing serious.
as chair, what was your objective for the, like, appreciating that things have been derailed a little bit now? Like, what were you hoping to announce coming out of these meetings? What was your goal? You say you're still hoping to sort of get back to that itinerary a bit? Like, I don't have any sense of what you wanted to do as chair with this gathering. Can you articulate that a bit for us?
Well, I've noticed that in a lot of the coverage this morning, they're using words like derailing and you know, upending the agenda here. I would suggest that this topic was going to be largely a large part of the discussion, regardless. So as chair, I have a couple of different roles here. Obviously, I'll be facilitating conversations on a broad range of topics. I expect that we're going to be, we'll continue to cover our planned agenda. You know, certainly there will be a focus again now, a little more on the trade and U.S. relationship, but my job will be to facilitate conversations about areas of importance to Canadians and all of our provincial and territorial leaders. But also, I'm here as the Premier of Prince Edward Island. Obviously, and I want to make sure that priorities of islanders are heard on a national scale, on a national stage. I want to, obviously, look, we've been making significant investments into Prince Edward Island here. Our economy has been strong, but Prince Edward Island, like everyone else, are feeling the pressures of affordability brought on by global events that feel much beyond our control in some cases. So, you know, we're also talking about healthcare, energy security, things that are important to Prince Edward Islanders, and they want to see our national leaders working together to make progress for Canadians.
But as chair, there was nothing specific you wanted to accomplish at this meeting, or like no particular goals?
There are very specific concerns for Prince Edward Island. Energy security is a very serious concern for Prince Edward Island. We'll be having a discussion about that on a national level, but issues very specific to Prince Edward Island. Our subsea cables would be an example of that. Healthcare, obviously, a very unique situation for Prince Edward Island to run a healthcare system on a smaller scale that doesn't scale the same way it does in larger provinces. Those are issues of concern. Is it the sustainability of our healthcare system in a small province like Prince Edward Island, access to primary care. Affordability issues are a huge concern of Prince Edward Islanders, and I want to talk to my national counterparts about strategies for dealing with that issue.
Thank you. We can take one more.
Do you want to see a deal by these 30 days?
Sorry?
How soon do you want to see a deal with the U.S. by these 30 days?
Look, we'll take our time to have the conversations here about this, and I look forward to hearing from the Prime Minister and what the strategy is and how premiers can play a role in those conversations over the next 30 days. But this is very early days, early hours on these latest developments, and look forward to speaking with the Prime Minister and the other leaders this afternoon to look for the way forward. Thanks very much.
Good morning, everybody. It's nice to see you. I can't think of another group of people I'd rather celebrate my 50th birthday with than all of you. It's great to be here in Charlottetown. Let me begin by thanking Premier Lantz and his team who have welcomed us here with open arms. It's a beautiful part of Canada and a great opportunity to get together with my colleagues from across the country. Obviously, the news of the day is the President's recent decision to levy more tariffs on Canada for reasons known only to him. I'll say that this feels like an increasingly desperate and flailing approach to relationships with our country. There's no question it will hurt families in British Columbia. It'll hurt families that are connected with our wood manufacturing. It'll hurt families that are connected with producing alcoholic beverages. It will hurt our economy in British Columbia. But this attempt by the President to hurt Canadians, to, for some reason, attack our country, was entirely predictable. He will probably do it again. And there's no reason to believe that this is the bottom in terms of where he's willing to go. And that's why, as British Columbians and as Canadians, we have been working to diversify our trade relationships, going to India, going to China, going to Asia. That's why the Prime Minister and I signed an agreement that will deepen and increase the infrastructure needed for us to be able to participate in the global economy and be less dependent on the United States. It's actually a bit of a paradox because I can't help but feel prouder to be a Canadian right now, that our integrity is intact as a country, that we know what we stand for, we know who our friends are, and we're willing to stand up for those things. There is not a chance in hell that U.S. alcohol is going back on the shelf in British Columbia. And I'm proud of that, and I know the British Columbians support that. And the idea of the President that he can bully us into whatever he wishes is incorrect. We're strong. We are, despite our many debates, united as a country, and we will continue to stand strong. And we will build relationships with those countries at the national level, at the provincial level, that want to have a relationship with us. I'll say it again. I feel sorry for Americans. If you can't be friends with Canada, then you almost certainly do not have a friend anywhere in the world. And that is a very lonely place to be. And given all of our friends and relatives that live south of the border, all we can hope is that there's a brighter day for America coming up. But in the meantime, they'll just be paying more for what they need that they get from Canadians. And if that makes the President happy, then there's not much to be said about that. With that, happy to take any questions that you may have.
Has the federal government asked you to put U.S. alcohol back on the shelf?
No, they have not.
Are you concerned that that's going to be an ask this week?
I am not concerned.
And if they do ask, what are you going to say?
I will be happy to engage in conversations with my colleagues across the country and the Prime Minister on the issue of U.S. alcohol on the shelf. But the idea that after facing yet another attack on our economy from the President, that this would be the moment to capitulate, I think would be the wrong approach.
Do you anticipate disagreement at the top table on this issue of leaving foods back in the shelf or not?
No, I think, you know, the more pressure the President puts on, if anything, the strength and solidarity of Canadian premiers, despite our sometimes profound differences, you know, our solidarity gets stronger. And that's what I'm counting on. It's what I'll be looking to my colleagues for. And it's where I hope the Prime Minister is as well.
Premier Ford says that if those tariffs do apply, we should respond dollar for dollar. Do you share that view?
I think that Canada's responses to U.S. trade attacks in the form of our own tariff responses can be a good way to send a message back to the United States, particularly the President, who has exempted a number of categories, knowing how dependent the U.S. is on those categories. But I think that should be an integrated response nationally. I don't think that any one province should try to take that on, and I support the Prime Minister and his team working with us to be able to identify those sectors. What I will say is that if any retaliatory response is undertaken, we need to make sure that it has a proportionate impact across the country, all of us shouldering some of the burden. And if it falls disproportionately on any one province, that we're supporting that province to be able to work together on behalf of all Canadians.
Did you talk to Doug Ford last night at all about this thing? Because he's been pretty adamant about that as well.
I think Doug and I are of a similar mind on this issue. The one way to embolden a bully is to capitulate, and I don't think we should embolden Mr. Trump, who clearly is a bully.
So, Premier, how do you effectively and mechanically hit back against the United States on this? Because as you said, there's no bottom, right? And there's certain things Canada won't do. I'm not sure there are things that the American administration won't do. And the relative size and disproportionate power of the economies, this seems to be a real escalatory move. How do you push back against this without triggering yet another escalation from the White House? Because these are effectively retaliations on retaliations.
The approach of the U.S. administration has been predictable in a sense that they are continually trying to find ways, creative ways, to try to attack Canada's economy. There's no question about that. The Canadian strength is that we have been very clear. The Prime Minister has been very clear. He's had my full support in this, that no deal is better than a bad deal with the Americans. We should not, out of a sense of desperation or anxiety or what's going to come next, bow down to this president's attempt to put pressure on Canadians. We need to recognize that what we have here in this country has value. It has more value now around the world than it has ever had, and that is because of the actions of the president, both at home and in his adventures overseas. That has been very clear to me in my trade missions consistently. And so as Canadians, what we have has value. The world wants it. As British Columbians, what we have has value. We need to be confident in that. And it has value to the Americans. And the list of exemptions that the president has drawn up shows that very clearly. So we have leverage here. We don't need to jump into anything that would be a bad deal for Canadians. And we need to hold out to make sure that we're protecting those sectors like softwood in British Columbia, like auto in Ontario, to support Canadian families from coast to coast.
Premier Lantz said he spoke with Dominic LeBlanc last night, and Minister LeBlanc suggested the 30 days is a window to really try to sprint and get some sort of a deal. I know you say don't rush, as in don't capitulate on bad terms, but do you see the next 30 days as the horizon to potentially reach some sort of a trade agreement with the United States here?
I mean, I'm not sure how the federal government reaches an agreement with an administration that, as far as I can tell, isn't talking to them. I don't see that the Americans have been engaging with Canada in trade conversations in any meaningful way. And so if the Americans come to the table to have a true discussion, I think that the federal government should absolutely be there. The Prime Minister and his team should be there. But if the Americans don't want to talk and they want to impose tariffs like this, then all of our energy should be going to other places. The United States is a huge market that is impossible for Canada to replace. But at the end of the day, if they don't want Canadian goods, if they don't like Canada, there's not a lot we can do about that. So let's focus our energy on the places that are really excited to trade with us and build up and take this generational opportunity so that our kids are not put in the same situation of being too dependent on the United States.
The fact that there's no CUSMA exemption for the goods on this particular list, some are saying is the signal of the beginning of the end for CUSMA, USMCA, that this is a dangerous new way that the USTR is approaching things now. How comfortable are you if the end result of not capitulating is the beginning of the unraveling of CUSMA?
The end of the trade agreement between the United States and Canada would be devastating for Americans and for Canadians alike. The extent of that self-inflicted injury on the United States would be profound. U.S. business will be very clear with the president about that. It is a significant counterweight to the worst case scenario, but at the end of the day, the president clearly is going to make up his own mind about these things. So as Canadians, all we can do is ensure that we're taking every step possible. You know, in British Columbia, our work around ensuring that we're courting customers around the world for our energy products, for our mining, metal and mineral products, for our softwood products, for our technologies, is where all of our attention is going. We understand that this is a new normal relationship for now with the United States, and regardless of who's elected next, it could be a continuation of this. And so as Canadians, as British Columbians, building out those opportunities in other places is our key focus, and it should be the focus of everybody, especially if the U.S. administration thinks they can go it alone.
You sound resigned to the rupture.
When the feds found out about these tariffs, because it seems like the premiers were blindsided last night, did the federal government have any heads up?
I don't know. I just found out yesterday myself. Thanks very much, everybody.